Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you are all having a wonderful Sunday. Welcome into the post-game show where, again, unfortunately, it's just not the happy times that you would like. I think there's some pluses to take away from that game, but moral victories only mean so much, especially in a season like this. So I get it. And it's upsetting because 2 weeks ago against Missouri, you saw that the defense could do some good things. Still gave up way too much in the first half against Missouri for it to essentially matter. But you watched in the second half and you thought, man, you still had a chance. The offense just couldn't put anything together. And I told you had a chance. And there's a lot of people that still didn't care. It was like, oh, the defense didn't really do anything. The defense didn't help. Or Missouri stopped playing, whatever the case may be. And I didn't really think the offense was going to be the biggest issue going down the stretch, but the past 6 quarters, it has. The past 6 quarters has been extremely rough for the South Carolina offense. And the Carolina defense has stepped up in a major way. And I had someone reply to a tweet of mine because I put out there earlier today. There was a couple players that had a tremendous game going back and watching the film. And especially on the defense side of the ball, and they said, well, how bad do you have to be to sit here and act like allowing 30 points is good? And again, a lot of context is left out of that tweet, right? So you look at, there was 3 penalties, 3 penalties that led to intentional groundings that backed them up. And on top of that, special teams, and this is kind of getting to the point where it's kind of extremely concerning of why Kai Kroger has struggled the way he has. And he has. He's struggled extremely bad. But going back and looking, and I'm going to try to do this real quick while I'm talking to y'all, looking back at the drives, with or during that three stretch drive where they where Texas A&M had 3 touchdowns on back-to-back drives. They started on, let me see here. On the first one, they started on their own 46-yard line. On the next one, they started on South Carolina's 48-yard line. And then on the following one, they started on South Carolina's 42-yard line. So on those 3 straight drives, they never had a worse field position than their own 45. And that is insane to think about. Now, am I sitting here telling you that the defense couldn't have at least got one stop or at least held one of those to a field goal? No, because one of them was a big play to Anaya Smith, which we'll kind of break down on Monday. Could have been defended better, and tackling could have been much better. But again, so much of that is not on the defense as much as it is on the special teams and offense putting your defense in a bad spot. I mean, seriously, that's not good. It's hard enough to play defense as it is, especially with the struggles that you've had. But to have those just be, I mean, they didn't have to do anything. They had short fields the whole time. But let's look at the other ones where they didn't have short fields. The first drive of the game, three plays and a punt. Second drive of the game, when they started on their own 20, 8 plays and a punt. The third possession that they had, they started on their own 25, 7 plays and a punt. And then the next time, because they had the 3 touchdowns after that, they had to start the ball on their own 25, 3 plays and a punt. They start the ball on their own 16. They go 13 plays with a field goal. The next time they have it on 25, they go the whole field with a field goal. And then the next time they're on the 33 of South Carolina, field goal. So the only time that they not once drove the field on you and scored a touchdown. When they had short fields, they took advantage. They capitalized. They did what you have to do to win games that South Carolina did not do against Missouri when they had the opportunity. They settled for field goals, and they did not do it yesterday. So your defense played extremely well. I know it doesn't look like it because you give up 30 points, but your defense did extremely well. And I'm going to tell you, they mixed up some things, and I hear the rumors, and I'm not here to talk about rumors because I only want to talk about facts. I don't know who called that game. For now, I'm going to assume it was Clayton White, but they did things differently. They lined up in some different formations. Sometimes it looked like they were in a 3-3. Sometimes it looked like they were in a 4-3. Sometimes it looked like they were in a 4-2-5. So they mixed up some things, and it gave Texas A&M problems. On top of that, they mixed in a little zone here and there. They mixed in a little man here and there. They also had different blitz packages. I can't tell you how many times throughout the season you could predict not only when South Carolina was going to blitz, but where it was coming from. Not yesterday. Yesterday you had simulated pressures where you would simulate that pressure, drop off, and then it would come right back on delayed blitz. You just had straight up corner blitzes. Hadn't done that in a while. You had so many different varieties of where you kept throwing off Texas A&M's offense to give yourself a chance. Tackling was better outside of 2 or 3 plays, which I'm going to – this isn't calling him – this is not calling Fortune out and saying and call him a bad football player. Again, that's not what we do here. This is constructive criticism. There's no reason – he should have played after that, or at least sat down a drive after that poor attempt at whatever that was on the sideline. Not only did you barely shoulder tackle him, but then you just gave up on the play and assumed he was going to quit and go out of bounds, and it goes for another 15, 20 yards. Unacceptable. Unacceptable in my opinion. Especially with the struggles that your team has had, you can't do that. You gave up an additional big game because you gave up and didn't decide to wrap up and tackle like you're supposed to. But we'll move on and move past that. But the defense did extremely well, gave you every chance in the world you needed. It doesn't look good because there's 30 points hung up on the board. But you look at the team stats for Texas A&M, which they had, I believe it was 354 total yards. Again, looking at that, that's not a pretty number by any stretch of the imagination. But this is a team, if it'll pull up, of course it's taking forever. It's not pulling up. But you held them outside of a 3 or 4 explosive plays. Now, there are still things that this defense needs to work on. But for the most part, they did extremely good. But let's talk about the part that's concerning to me. And it's the offense. And we can sit here and talk about the offensive line issues. But what's the point? We know there's issues. We know why there's issues. We know it doesn't help that you have injuries, and you got even more injuries yesterday than you had coming into the day. How do I go about this? The only bright side to this receiving core going into the Final Four games is if you can have 100% healthy Xavier Legette, which he was not 100% healthy. You can't convince me otherwise. I saw plays that he makes on a regular that he did not make yesterday. And he just didn't seem 100%. The body language did not seem 100% at all. But what I think can be a good thing if he can get 100% is these last 4 games you finally have. And I'm not even going to say finally. I think they're trusting him more and more, and Harbor is trusting himself and getting more and more confidence. You finally have a 1-2 punch. Unfortunately, so far, you have not had both of them consistently at 100% with the confidence that they both have right now at the same time. But now, going into these last 4 games, and hopefully you don't need it against brain fart. I think it's Jacksonville State. I can't remember who it is. I think we're Jackson State. I can't remember. The other Gamecocks. Hopefully you can get Xavier Legette healthy and you don't necessarily need him this game, and then the last 3 you can use him. But that's the only bright side that I see from this receiving core. Omega Blake has shown some good tendencies. He still has some crucial drops, especially when they go to him on big downs. Russell, it's going to come to him, but he's had some pretty big drops as well. There's no separation on the back end of it. Watched it a little bit this morning. Every now and then there was separation, but when there was separation, the offensive line didn't hold up. So It's rough. This is a receiving core that needs people to step up and step up quick, and if not, you're going to have to hit the portal this offseason. And I do think there are areas of concern that need to have portal like addressed. Offensive tackle being one of them, receiver being another one, and then you definitely need a big defensive lineman. And I don't just mean big. I mean someone that has that size, but also has the experience that they can come play ball and you know what you're getting in it. On top of a corner as well. But you have talent coming in, and a lot of people when I put this, I say a lot of people. I'm not gonna say a lot of people. There's like one or two. Kind of disagreed with that and saying no, we got talent coming in. And yes, you have talent coming in. You do. You need to be in a place where you can develop that talent. Kind of like you were with Harbor, where unfortunately it's not the same exact scenario you're wanting. You gave Harbor time to come into his own. Even though you desperately needed him earlier, you gave him time, and now he is what he is, making plays. You need to have experienced guys come in on several different positions in this offseason. And not only that, you're going to have to hit on them. And Beamer's got to go portal hunting and get big guys. We don't need to go get – and this is nothing against Mario Anderson, which, by the way, I can't be the only one that was aggravated at that announcer. Name him Mark. I don't even remember how he was saying it. It was ticking me off. Nothing against the Mario Andersons of the world. Go get you some D1 talent that been there, done that. We can get project guys for depth, sure. But we need – sorry. There is no we. Carolina needs quality depth. And that's kind of what you're lacking, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And at tight end, leaving this year. It's upsetting because you didn't get a complete game from this defense. You got a excellent 3 quarters. But when you got it from your defense, you didn't have it from your offense, and your special teams lacked as well. So going into these last 4 games is going to be rough. I believe it goes exactly Jacksonville State, Vanderbilt, which can't count anything out here, especially with injuries, but hopefully you win those 2. And then you got the last 2 games, Kentucky, which I think is your toughest remaining test out of the 3 or 4, and Clemson all at home. But you got to get to the first 2 first. This has to be a game-by-game, get to bowl eligibility. And I know it sounds like you're fighting for less than what you wanted. But, again, Brad Crawford brought this up, and he's continuously brought this up. And I've had to admit I was wrong on this several times. You were predicted to win 6.5 games this year. The hype, and rightfully so, and I bought into it as well, kind of overset expectations because Carolina was that far in advance. You had talent around in this program. Injuries didn't help, and a couple of other things. And quite frankly, and I think the coaching staff will admit this too, there were some games you flat out got out coached. One of those times being, and again, I love Shane Beamer. I know a lot of people don't. I know Shane Beamer has acquired taste for some. There are some things that I think Shane Beamer needs to, quote unquote, get better at, and it's not the coaching aspect. It's in front of a microphone. A lot of people don't like the way Shane Beamer talks, and it's just because he's Shane Beamer. But if you go and you look around, I'm pretty sure the Maryland coach essentially did what Shane Beamer did after the Florida game. You don't see that getting posted anywhere. Shout out to Brad Crawford for that one as well. But at the end of the day, Beamer being who he is why I think you have a good bit of this recruiting class. So I don't want him to change as much. There are some things that you might say, hey, let's just go talk ball, let's go be a coach and just get out of there kind of thing. But the only issue I have yesterday from a coaching standpoint is on that 4th down play. And again, I tweeted this and somebody said at some point we have to have accountability for the players, which I do find funny because the first 8 games, nobody wanted to put any accountability on the players. It was always blame the coach, blame Coach White. kind of stuff. But now it's coming up. Yes, there needs to be accountability for Nick. You have to have a better snap in that situation. But for me, on that fourth and I think it was like one, with the bad snap winding up being not a necessarily fumble, but they never really had a shot to get anything out of it. I think there needed to be a timeout call. It felt rushed to me. It felt like a very important part of the game. We need to get a good call, have everybody settle down, go back out there and attack it. Only thing I didn't necessarily like from that game. But again, you still have a chance for bowl eligibility. And it starts this coming weekend with Jacksonville State and Vanderbilt, and then you got Kentucky and Clemson, with Kentucky being the toughest test in my opinion. And it should worry you even more because Leary, for the first time I think all year, kind of showed you, hey, he can actually do something with his arm. But if the defense that showed up yesterday can continuously show up over these next two games, and I know a lot of people will just go and say, well, look at the opponents, look at the competition. At this point, that means nothing. You need all the confidence in the world for this defense that you can get because they're going to play a pivotal role in the last two games. So that kind of wraps it up for your post-game show. Again, 2-6 is not where you want to be at all. From someone that thought this was an 8-4, 9-3 team, the best you can do right now is 6-6. Reality of it is you might be a 5-7 team. There are still chances to get to 6-6. There are still chances to get to a bowl game and make this a season actually worth something. And I know a lot of people, when I say this, are going to disagree, and that's completely fine. And this is not making an excuse for the season, but we also can't blow by it either. If you can find a way to get to bowl eligibility and get to a bowl game at 6-6 and win your bowl game and finish 7-6, you're talking about a team that has been plagued with injuries at the worst possible position you can have at the offensive line, along with everyone else on the team. You could find a way with all of that adversity to go and win, 5 straight games. And I think that would be huge for Carolina and their momentum for the next season and getting Sellers ready or whoever. If they bring in another quarterback, I don't think they will. I don't think they should. But whoever takes over next year, I think that's huge if Carolina can manage to do that. But it all starts this week, one game at a time. You have to continue to be better. Hopefully you get a healthy Xavier Legette and Harbor. I think if you can get that solves a lot of your issues on the offensive side of the ball. You still got Mario Anderson. You just need to have the healthiest 4-game stretch for the remainder of the year. But thank you for dropping in. I hope y'all have a great weekend. I will see y'all tomorrow. We will be breaking down some film. See ya.